Hey, it's Kevin here, and today I wanted to talk to you about your New Year's goals. Have you set them? And more importantly, are you following them? Now, personally, I try to live my life in a way where I'm always growing and improving so that I don't have to wait until New Year's in order to make a positive change in my life. But unfortunately, that's not how most people live, and New Year's is one of those few times where they actually stop and reflect on their life and what they want to do. Now, obviously, I have my own views on this, as you can probably tell in the undertones, and I think that we should do this a lot more frequently. But, New Year's is one of the few times where it's socially acceptable and even encouraged to do so. And I think that's the case for a very good reason. If you look at the year in terms of four seasons, winter, spring, summer, and fall, and kind of apply this framework to your year. So, we're now in the winter season, and now is the time to reflect on the fall, the summer, and really take a look at everything we've harvested, all the raw materials that we've gathered, all the lessons that we've accumulated, all the life experiences that we've had, and how it's shaped us. And then to really harvest all that and then plant the seeds in the winter, because once spring rolls around, that's when the seeds that you plant now are going to bloom and blossom. And then when summer comes, they're going to be totally open and bloomed, if you think of it like a flower. And that's when you're really going to be able to enjoy the fruits of your labor. So it's important to stop and plant the seeds now so that you have something worth looking at in the spring, so that you have something that you can see and be proud of. And if you haven't already stopped to reflect on where you've been and assess where you are now, I really recommend that you do that, because unless you decide where it is that you want to go, you're just going to make some sort of half-assed New Year's resolution that isn't going to amount to anything. And I know that may sound a little bit harsh, but that's kind of what happens in life. Most people that set New Year's resolutions don't achieve them. And there was actually a really interesting study done by a British psychologist named Richard Wiseman. And what he did was he surveyed 3,000 people, and what he found was that 88% of all New Year's resolutions ended in failure. And he did this in 2007, and in that year, 52% of the people that he surveyed said that they were confident that they would achieve their goals, and yet only 12% achieved them. He took a survey of these goals. A lot of them were centered around losing weight, about getting back into shape, about drinking less alcohol, and giving up smoking. Now, this isn't surprising given that, New Year's goals are set after, Thanksgiving, when everyone's eating, Christmas, more eating, New Year's, lots of drinking, so it makes sense. But only 12% actually achieve these goals, which leads me to why does that happen? Why do most people who set New Year's resolutions fail to follow them? Why don't they amount to anything? Well, I think it comes down to just basic human nature, and that change is hard. Humans are creatures of habit, and to change a part of our personality or behavior or our habit is very, very difficult, and it takes a lot of willpower. And you can compare it to like a rocket ship that's trying to blast off into space. It takes a lot of energy and fuel and momentum to really get the amount of force required to blast off into space. There's that force of gravity kind of pushing it down, and you have to break that barrier before it can go up. And the same thing goes with any kind of personal change that you try to make in your life, because, like I said, humans are creatures of habit. So the gravitational forces of your old habits are pulling down on you. They're pushing you down and holding you where you are. They're keeping you complacent. They're keeping you safe and comfortable and familiar. It's in human nature to resist change, even if the change is in our best interest, because we like to keep things familiar. It keeps us safe, and it's a kind of a survival mechanism that we've evolved over the years. So it's important to understand the inner game of personal change when you set out to make goals or resolutions in the new year, because if you don't understand this sort of innate process that you have to deal with, it's going to be that much harder to succeed. And it's going to be very likely that you're going to fail because you won't generate that momentum and that willpower that you really need. And the last thing you want to do is set one of these goals where, I just want to give up junk food, or I want to start going to the gym. And then, let's say even you do that for a month or 2, 3 months, whatever. Then you go back to your old ways, and then you're reflecting on your year like I recommend you doing in December. What is it that you're really reflecting on? This short-lived burst of inspiration, that's nothing to be proud of. It's like if you gave up meat for a month and went vegetarian. So let's say you did that during January or February, and then you're sitting there the following December and you're like, yeah, this was a really good year. There was that 1 month where I gave up meat, or there was that 1 month where I exercised consistently. Yeah, that was a year worth living. No, that's not the way you want to set New Year's goals and New Year's resolutions. But unfortunately, that's the way we set them, and we end up failing, and then, we don't really have much to show for it. And the biggest reason this happens is actually embedded in the way we set New Year's resolutions. If you take a look at the etymology of the word resolution, it stems from resolve, or solution. So basically, both of those imply that you're solving some kind of problem. So when you think of a resolution to make for the new year, you're automatically already framing it in a certain way. You begin looking at your life through sort of a negative lens, seeing all the problems that you want to solve, or things that you didn't do, disappointments you had throughout the year, things that didn't turn out the way you wanted them to, and it just creates this long laundry list of negative things that happened. Well, your life is not a problem to be solved. It is a process that evolves, and it's up to you to direct this evolving process. And you can't direct it and mold it and turn it into what you ultimately want if you're just looking at it through this kind of narrow focus of, this is what went wrong and this is what I want to do differently. I mean, it's good to assess and look at what's working and what isn't, but to just kind of frame it as a quick fix that you want to make for the new year is ripping yourself off, and it's selling yourself short. You don't want to end the year with just, this one half-assed attempt that you tried to make. So instead of setting New Year's resolutions, what I recommend is setting New Year's evolutions, ways that you want to personally shift and grow and expand. And this will require you to take a different kind of approach. You're going to have to look back at the past year through the eyes of gratitude. You're going to have to see the ways that you did succeed, the ways that you did grow, the ways that things did go right, which may be hard, especially if you're trained to just see the negative and the things that didn't work out. And even if they didn't, even if you came across obstacles or you ran into certain challenges that prevented you from getting to where you want to be, even if things didn't work out the way you wanted them to, reflect on how those things taught you a certain lesson, whether about yourself, about life, about others, whatever it is. Go, yeah, this thing didn't unfold the way I wanted it to. But as a result of this experience, I learned this, this, and that. And because of this experience, I'm now more blah, blah, blah. Because the fact is, you can't control life. Even the best goal or New Year's resolution, whatever, the universe has its own way of unfolding. And you got to work with the flow, not against it. You can think of it like a ball of clay that you're constantly molding and shaping into what you want it to be. And if you're just setting a New Year's resolution, like get into the gym or work out, that's like going I'm overweight, I'm going to cut this chunk off. out of like the clay. Like, it's going to look like crap. You can't just do that. You have to work with it and mold it. So hopefully that gives you a better idea of what I mean by this whole refinement thing. It's basically just reflecting on your life and then making some very strategic course corrections that, you know, if you do, it'll just get you from where you are now to where you want to be. Now, that still might be a little bit vague, so let me give you a clear and tangible example. So let's just say that your goal is to lose weight. Instead of going, I'm going to drag my ass into the gym 3 times a week, and I'll just force myself to do it. Focus on integrating a healthy lifestyle as your focus for the next year. You know, to choose water instead of soda if you're eating out or even at home, because that way you're cutting out empty calories from sugar. Choose to stop eating when, you know, you're not hungry instead of eating until you're full and you go into a food coma. You know, there's millions of other things, but you want this to permeate into your entire life so that it sticks. Because if you just say, like, I'm going to do this one thing, well, what happens when you start doing that one thing? It has to come from within. It has to be an inner shift. Because if you shift internally and if you commit inside of you, then when you're in that moment, that internal compass is there. You're guiding yourself somewhere, and your choices will come from that place within you versus, you know, choosing these external things that you do until you decide that it's uncomfortable or you don't like it or it takes too much work. You know, you really, through that process of reflection, you make a refinement within yourself. And from that point on, something in you shifts and the way you approach things are just radically different. Now, you might be watching this and going, yeah, that makes sense. I should probably give that a try. But how do I actually do that? What do I do next? Well, here's what I recommend. I recommend that you choose 1 or 2 themes that you're going to integrate and overlay into everything you do for the next year. That way, it really spreads and internalizes in everything you do. Now, I can't tell you what those themes are going to be. Only you know. So that has to emerge from within you. And the only way that can emerge is by reflecting on the past year, by assessing where you were, where you are now, and where you want to be, and kind of following your intuition and letting it guide you into those kind of intelligent course corrections that'll help you get there. And I think if you really meditate or reflect on it, or whatever word you want to use, like if you really sit with yourself and think about where it is you want to take your life over the next 12 months and reflect on the last 12 months, I think there's going to be an inner emergence that goes, I should probably do this thing. Now, that still might be a little vague for you, so I'm going to give you a personal example from my own life, because a lot of people like when I do that. It helps them kind of understand my thought process and what I mean, and sometimes it even inspires them to apply it in their own life when they weren't really all that enthusiastic about it before. So, I mean, I've been doing this for like the past 3 or 4 years, and it's totally changed the way that all my years unfold. I'm always able to look back on my year with a sense of gratitude and appreciation that I really never even thought was possible. So what I did this year, through my reflection, I felt really frustrated with my life. As many of you know, I'm an entrepreneur, and I have several different businesses, and even though they were thriving this year, I mean, they literally grew 5 times over the past year, like 500%. But it came at a cost to my sanity, my well-being, as I was always stressed out. I was always frustrated and overworked. And yeah, I was doing well financially, but, you know, I was starting to think, I was like, you know, why did I really get into this? You know, I don't want this taking over my life anymore. So I started thinking, like, why did I even get into this? Like, what drives me to do what I do? Well, the main reason was because I've always wanted to help others. So what drives me is to make a difference, to serve others, to share my message, to share my story and my advice. And besides that, I've always been an entrepreneur. I've always been driven and self-motivated, and I liked having the freedom and the creative control to do what I want and not have a boss kind of like breathing down my neck telling me what to do and watching like my every move. Well, just like anyone who's ever been in business knows, you go into business thinking you're going to get more freedom, but what often happens is you have less freedom. And that was the case for me. I found myself working 60 to 80 hours a week. I was stressed out. I felt like I had no freedom. And, instead of creativity, and having the creative control, I felt like I was just overloaded with things that I need to do for months. I just felt obligated by all this stuff on my plate. And I didn't really feel like I just had the ability to wake up and be creative and express myself. And, that was the real reason why I got into it. So I guess I got clear that I was feeling a lot of frustration and obligation. So I started thinking about, all right, well, what would be the opposite of that? So the opposite of that, I figured, would be freedom instead of obligation. And then instead of frustration of, I got to do this thing that I don't want to do, I thought I'd love to just have the freedom to be creative and to do the things I'm passionate about. Well, those are the two themes that are going to be guiding me this year: freedom and creativity. And once I got clear on that, the actions to take from there kind of revealed themselves. I started to think about, all right, well, who do I need to bring in and hire to help me focus on the real things that really fulfill me, that inspire me, and that where my gifts really are, not like tweaking a website or, doing whatever. That's kind of like necessary grunt work. So, that came with its own set of challenges about letting go of control and not micromanaging. But, I'm not going to get into all that because it's not really about me. It's just to illustrate the thought process for you so that you can go and take this out in your own life and apply it. So please do what I shared. Pick one or two themes after you've reflected a bit. And to help you integrate this, I actually created a short little survey right underneath this video with two questions. One is just to help you get clear on your goal. And the second one is to get clear on your why. Like, what is it that's going to drive you to get this done? Like, why is this the year that this is going to happen? And to make that reason as compelling as possible, because when the going gets tough, your why is going to save you. If it's not strong, you're going to quit, just like everyone else does. Don't be like everyone else. Get clear on your why. There's a quote that I once heard that always stuck with me from that day on. And it goes, "He who has a strong enough why can bear almost any how." And that's by Friedrich Nietzsche. And I just love that quote. So here's what I'm going to do to encourage you to take action, because I really want you to apply it. I didn't just talk for close to 20 minutes for fun. Well, it is pretty fun, but it's a lot of work. So click the link below this video to fill out that survey. And if you're one of the first 10 people to get clear on your goal and your why, I'm going to give you a free 30-minute strategy session. So you hop on the call with a clear goal and a strong why, and I'm going to help you figure out the how. I'm going to help you strategize and create an action plan to make sure that you achieve it. And if you want accountability, if you want focus, I can help you get clear on that and make sure that it happens. Now, I normally charge $75 for a 30-minute strategy session, but like I said, for the first 10 people, it's going to be completely free. So go ahead and take action quick while it's still up there. I want to reward you for really implementing this. I hope this has served you, and I hope this has been helpful, regardless of whether you end up filling out the survey or having the session with me or not. It really just go out there and use this to live the best year of your life. That's all that I really care about. I just want this message to impact you and for this to trickle down and impact the quality of your life. And that's what it's really all about. So go ahead and use this, step up, make this year the best year of your life, and go out there and make it happen.